Hey, welcome back to the ACE Football Academy. I am Coach Dunham, joined alongside Coach Hamilton. Coach, we've got kind of one of those tipping point discussions today where there's some boiling points that are going to get us a little worked up. We may go on a few rants, but we're going to talk about the impact of referee decisions and some of the things that kind of go into the referee making those decisions, and some of those about coaches reacting to those decisions. And we know referees undoubtedly can change a game with one blow of the whistle. It could be an ejection, it could be a penalty kick, it could be a missed call in the box. There's a lot of ways of going about this, but let's be honest here, Coach. They're all about human beings trying to do the best that they can, and sometimes they don't always go the way we want them to.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we don't want this to become a bash on officials, although it may at times. But we also want, we all get frustrated with officials, just like officials get frustrated with coaches sometimes, and we get frustrated with players sometimes, and players get frustrated with us. But when you have that whistle, the power that you have, the way that you can impact a game by making what ultimately is a judgment call, can change the outcome or can change the flow of a match, especially as you start to get higher up the ladder in these matches that mean a whole lot. When you just played in Challenge Cup. I'm going to President's Cup this weekend. We're not even talking an MLS Supporters Shield match or an EPL final or anything like that, right? We're going to talk about it in a broad spectrum, but yeah, you're right. Officials have the power to really change a game.
Let's get right into it. You made the comment, the power of the whistle, and that's kind of really our first topic here, where not just the power of the whistle, sometimes the power of not using the whistle.
Oh boy.
One thing that drove me up a wall when I was coaching youth soccer from, the younger ages of academy and coming up, is most of the time you're getting these high school age kids who are kind of getting used to refereeing. And the ones that just won't blow their whistle for one thing. Mm-hmm. Or when they do blow the whistle, no one around them can hear that the whistle's being blown.
Or they don't know what the whistle was blown for.
And that was the next topic. Like, you blow the whistle, you just stand there and point this way. And it was like, what are we calling?
Yeah. Is it out of bounds? Are we taking a free kick here?
And I think that goes into, I think you and I agree with this. We have to educate our referees way better than what we're doing before, other than putting through a class, handing them a whistle and some cards and saying, just go do it. Yeah. They've got to have some mentors.
Oh, yeah.
To say, hey, I'm observing your game today. Game's over. Here are 3 things I think you need to work on. And now they're learning from somebody that's been doing it for years. And I bring this up because we just played in Challenge Cup this past weekend. And my boys' last game, it was 3-3. With 5 minutes to go, my boys' team went up 4-3. So there's probably 30 seconds left to go in the game. And my player, or our team's player, is in the box and it's down on the end that we're defending. He kicks the ball straight to our keeper, and our keeper catches it. And the guy says, play on.
Oh, wow.
And the other coach is losing his freaking mind, which he should.
Yeah.
It was a clear, intentional play to the keeper.
Yeah. Even
if he mishit it, he intended to hit the ball in that direction. Right. It went to the keeper, used his hands. To me, it should have been called. And a game that intense, that's where things are going to get lively. And you got the fans getting worked into it. The power of the non-call is just as important as the power of the call, whether it be in the box, handing red cards. There's a lot goes into that decision being made by that referee.
Yeah, and, it's one of those moments where you would love to ask that official, hey, what was the call there, right? And we'll get to that talking to the official, I'm sure, in a little bit. I think that's my biggest frustration. But, yeah, you're right. They can alter the game, and they can shoot by whether they choose to blow or whether they choose not to blow the whistle can really you have a note here, like, what if as an official I go straight red on somebody 12 minutes into a match?
Yeah.
Now everything that team has done leading up to that match training wise is now he's out the window, because now I'm playing a man down for the next 60 minutes or for the next, depending on how long you play a game. But, for us, it'd be okay. We play a 70-minute match. Now I have to go the next 58 with 10 players. And especially at the youth level, maybe even a high school level, you don't train that a whole lot. Like, hey, here's what we're going to do when we go down a player.
I don't know many coaches that
right?
do actually train that.
Because you don't expect that to happen. So many ways that I like the term we're using here, the power of the whistle, that I think officials just need to be, not that they're not aware of it, but I think they do need to be a little more aware of it, that, just like the non-call you talked about, is his thought process of, I don't want to be the one that decides this game, so I'm going to let that call go, right? Or is he thinking, or is he thinking, no, I thought that kid was trying to clear the ball and he just happened to go to the keeper picked it up, right? What is the thought process there? And unfortunately, most of the time we don't get to hear that.
Yeah, and I like you just brought that up of red cards early. I think one thing that's irritated me in youth soccer, even at the high school level, the reluctance to show cards.
Yeah.
And let's be honest here. There are times where a kid makes a bonehead play that I'm like, oh my God, he just did that. And the referee just has, all right, just don't do that again. And then that's it.
Yeah.
We can't teach the kids the consequences of their decision on the field without a referee saying, I've got to card you for this, man. There's no way I can walk away from that dangerous play or a red card here because you're so out of control. You want studs up, whatever it may be.
Right.
I would like to see more referees use cards more often to control the games early and often. And I know that's a questionable thing to say, but there are so many plays where I'm looking at what just happened and thinking, how is that not a card?
Yeah.
He slid from behind and we went studs up, or he put an elbow to the guy's neck. I mean, there's got to be times where a referee has to say, all right, I've got to put a card on this.
And you're right. A lot of times it's not a card because they're 13 years old, right? And that's the only reason it's not a card.
Right.
But we're going to talk about that in a little bit. The carding in a little bit. So I don't want to jump ahead to that.
Yeah.
But because I think that's an interesting conversation.
Absolutely.
So just to kind of wrap up that segment with the power of the whistle. There are, we didn't even get into penalty kick discussion. When there's a clear and obvious PK, how many times have you seen it, whether it goes against you or goes for you? There's a clear and obvious PK at the end of the game, and it's not called, again, because does the official not want to be the one that, changes the game? Or did they see something different? But regardless, whether they make the call or not, it clearly alters how a match might go.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next topic here. Human error in the use of technology. Now, obviously, technology is more in the pros. Premier League, La Liga, MLS. They have, what's the word I'm looking for? They have the, I guess, on their side of not making the call.
Yeah.
VAR calls down and says, nope, that's definitely a penalty. Got to go back and give them a penalty kick now.
Yep.
But in youth soccer, the referee doesn't have that option. It's that decision right there in that moment. And they've got to make that split decision of, oh, am I really giving a PK 5 minutes into a match?
Right. Or with 3 minutes left in the match?
But I think the thing is, as long as you follow the rules, you make the call as it stands.
Yeah, agreed.
That shouldn't be a moral compass type of situation there where you're thinking, oh, I can't hurt this team 5 minutes of the game. Well, sure you can.
Yeah.
If it's a clear foul and it's in the box, it's a penalty kick.
Yeah. That
shouldn't be a question of, do I blow the whistle or not? It doesn't matter if it's 30 seconds to the game or 30 seconds remaining in the game.
Mm-hmm.
If it warrants the foul, if it warrants the card, warrants the call, you make it.
Yeah, and I don't know if our listeners know this. I officiated for a long time before I even got into coaching. And one thing that they always preach to us, and so I don't think it, I love that you brought up the morality part of it, because I think that's what it is, honestly. Because even good grief, 20 years ago. I'm getting old.
Welcome to the party.
And even 20 years ago when I'm officiating, our assigner and our people told us, hey, you call the game the first 5 minutes just like you do the last 5 minutes.
Yes.
There should be no fluctuation in how you call the match, right? But to this topic of conversation, the VAR, things like that have completely changed the game. And you and I were talking off camera about our frustrations with VAR just as fans, right? We don't deal with it as coaches. We're not at that level. But even as fans, I feel like officials don't make calls because they just know that, oh, this is really close, so I'm just going to let it go, and then the computer will tell me if I was wrong. They'll buzz down and it'll tell me if I'm wrong. And that is why I think I am just not a fan of the VAR.
Yeah, and there's just so many inconsistencies. And I think the biggest part of that is every pro game has a different guy in the box and a different guy centering the game. Every one of those guys can see a play very differently.
Oh, yeah, massively.
You and I could see plays very differently where we believe something is a foul or is not a foul.
Yeah.
One thing I want to add to this human error element, especially in the youth game, talking high school and down, is the fans and the parents on the sidelines getting really involved in the games. I've been in high school games coaching where my parents really have crossed the line.
Yeah.
About berating a referee, and I'm like, oh my gosh, why are we going that ballistic over this kind of a call?
Right.
I mean, I'm getting frustrated as well, but
yeah,
I'm not cursing the referee out as if he's the biggest scumbag on the planet. And I get the frustrations. What I don't get is crossing that line of yelling at a human being like he's some piece of garbage on the bottom of your foot.
Right.
Like he's just ruined your life. He really hasn't. And I think that goes into the human error of referees making a bad call, or it could be a makeup call that we talk about a lot of times where, hey, I missed this one. I got you on this one here. It's kind of weak, but I'll give it to you.
Right. Yeah.
Again, it goes back to if you just follow the rules of the game, assuming you know the rules of the game, which we've encountered referees that aren't too sure about the rules of the game themselves.
Yeah.
And that's another big topic for me to get into.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing for me is we don't, I'm going to take up for my official friends a little bit here. We don't expect our players to be perfect. They don't expect us to be perfect. We all know we're going to make mistakes. I mean, hell, I tell my players, hey, if we're not making mistakes, we're not working hard enough.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I say that multiple times a week. And so for us to also, on the flip side of that, expect that for 90 minutes or for 70 minutes in my case, that center referee is not going to make a single mistake, that's just unrealistic.
Yeah. All right, Chris, let's move on to a topic that I think you and I really want to get into here. We've talked about kind of previously, the cards. Yeah. Red cards, disciplining players on the field, and we just ended it with that. Balancing the fairness of the game. You've got the parents wanting calls. You've got the coaches wanting calls. You got one coach saying it's a foul, one coach saying it's not a foul. Parents doing the same thing. And the referee's in the middle of all this saying, if I don't get this calls right, this game's going to start blowing up real quick. Because now, when they got coaches and fans getting hyped up, the players are getting to a zone of they're stepping out of the soccer and then getting into the frantic phase of get in there, get the tackle, get the ball, get it done. Because I got to make mom happy. I got to make dad happy. I got to make coach happy.
Well, and again, this goes back to what we talked about earlier. How do you prevent that from happening? You make the calls early.
Mm-hmm.
It is so much easier to call it tight and loosen up as the game moves on than it is from be really loose and then try to tighten it up at the end. I think that's when you really piss people off, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Is when somebody gets checked from behind and you're play on in the first half, but then in the second half, my player steps in front and maybe there's some contact and you blow your whistle all of a sudden.
Yeah.
right? Because the game has gotten a little bit chippy. Well, it got chippy because you were letting those fouls go in the first half as clean plays, and so now we're reacting to that. And I think that's the big thing, right? Parents, players, they will react to how you're officiating a game because there's nothing else we can do about it, right?
Yeah.
The power of the whistle. You have the whistle. So if you are going to call it ticky-tack and if you are going to call the little bumps and pushes, then there's not a whole heck of a lot I can do about it except tell my players, hey, you just can't touch them. Okay, move the ball and play.
I think an experienced referee can get a gist of how a game's going to go in the first 2 to 3 minutes. You can tell these guys are here to play ball, and they're just going to play ball. You can tell if two teams just don't like each other, and it's going to get chippy real quick because they're going. If you listen, you're going to see eye contact. You're going to see little, I guess, people trash talking to each other.
The late hand flick as you're walking away from somebody.
Oh, absolutely.
And,
You're going to get a little ticky-tacky foul within the first few minutes of the game.
Yeah.
If you know it's going to get chippy.
Yeah.
And that's where you got. I said this in the beginning. You use the yellow cards to control the game.
Yep.
If it's 10 minutes in the game, I already pulled 3 cards on players. They know I'm not going to let little things slide like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now once you get to the second half and it's more intense, the coaches are more involved, the parents are more involved, you start pulling out cards again. Mm-hmm. Well, if the coaches don't calm things down, someone's going to get ejected, or else they should be getting ejected.
Yep, absolutely.
And again, I've said it 1,000 times already. If you just understand the rules and call it by the rules of the game, not by using your moral compass of, I got to feel good about it. Mm-hmm. I don't care about your feelings of it. It's what you see, and is it against the rules? Yeah. It's really that simple. And especially when you get into the middle school, high school ages, where they have the bodies to really hurt people, you need to make sure you're controlling the game with those cards.
Yeah, that's a great point. I have a player now who, like me, just little, right? And so they see that, and sometimes, like, I go both ways with it, because sometimes, she'll go to the ground, and my parents go, I'm like, guess that's not a foul.
She's a little one.
Yeah, she's just not strong. Just not strong enough yet, right? But then also sometimes you're like, okay, that's like, and then how often do you see it reverse, right? You got a bigger player who doesn't actually foul; they just win the ball and they get called for the foul because the little one goes to the ground, right? So for me, with the cards, I want to get into actually something that we both brought up during our rule changes episode. Please go back and listen. That was one of our earlier episodes.
It's a great episode.
Yeah, and one of our most listened to episodes. So please go back and listen to that if you haven't already. But almost like, so listeners think hockey, where
it's a great point right there.
Where you get, you have to go in the penalty box for 2 minutes, and so the other team, they call it a power play, and you just play down a man for 2 minutes or whatever. I love this, where now that second yellow, or maybe, you eliminate that moral side of things, where, hey, I've given you a yellow, now I've given you a blue or an orange or whatever color you want to make it, right? I've given you that middle card too, where I've sent you off this game for 4 minutes. Now, if you commit another foul, you can't yell at me for going red now, because now I've given you 3 legit and honestly, as we talk about, most officials, more than 3, because most officials are not going to go, oh, first foul yellow, oh, second foul blue, oh, third foul red. They're going to go first foul, hey, chill. Second foul, hey, you're done. And then it's going to be third foul yellow, and then it's going to be fourth foul, hey, the next time I'm sending you off. And then it's going to be fifth foul blue. So really, you're going to get multiple opportunities to either rein yourself in as a player, or as a coach, rein your player in. So I really, really like the idea of we're calling it blue, I guess, but going blue card, you're off for 4 minutes or whatever it is.
I think you and I are in massive agreement on this. This is a great opportunity for the referees to control a game without the real threat of being ejected from the game.
Yep.
You can say, hey, 2 yellow cards is still a red.
Yeah.
But if I show you the blue card, 3 times will equal a red.
Yeah.
But each blue card, like you said, is a 2-minute penalty or a 4-minute penalty where your team is down a man.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about putting pressure on a player to not lose his wits in a game. If you're on the sideline because you're in a 2-minute penalty and you're watching your team down a man, now you're telling yourself, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. That was so stupid.
Right.
You know? And the referee's in your ear, hey, man, you've got to control yourself on the field. You can't go and tackle like that. You can't put your elbows up, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Now they're having a chance to think about what they did. Now the consequence of it is really reeling in the head, because when you get a yellow card, you're still playing on.
Next play, right?
You know?
They used to make you, and I don't know when this switched, but at least at the high school level.
High school was the only one that did that.
They used to make you come off when you got
That's just high school.
But, and you and I are guilty as it as coaches, right? You got your center back or your striker that gets a yellow, and you don't even let them off the field. You're just like, hey, go
back up. Yeah, absolutely.
Go get online, right? And so I think that's why they took it away. It wasn't doing anything for the game, right? I think it was meant for them to, hey, step off and cool off. But, maybe that's on us coaches for not giving that moment. You're like, hey, go back on, need you on the field, right? But no, I love that. And, I would even flip it from what you said. I would make it now, okay, 3 yellows is a red, 2 blues is a red, and then red is a red, right? Yeah. I think I would flip it, because if I'm sending you off in a live match, something is wrong, right?
Yeah.
Something is happening. Like, I've seen something or seen multiple things where I am telling you, kind of like you said, you need to go sit down for a second.
Yeah. And like we said, giving the ref tools to control the game is the key to all of that.
Because that's our biggest frustration, right? When, okay, we're not playing soccer anymore. We're either trying to protect ourselves or we're too physical with somebody, right? And you and I have been in games in both, right? Where I'm trying to protect my players, and also when I'm trying to tell my players to, hey, please be smart and just play soccer, right?
Yeah, Chris, the last topic we're going to talk about is one that happens every game. It's the offsides call. You laugh, and we're laughing at the same time, especially at the ages you and I coach, because it's probably a high school kid.
Yeah.
Maybe early college age. Either they don't care, they're just there to get paid, or they just don't know, and they're not properly understanding the offsides rule. It's when the ball's played, but they're calling it, wherever the ball player receives it, whatever they're looking at.
Absolutely.
Or they're not managing the timing of the play correctly.
That's the big one.
Where,
or their positioning. My biggest thing is their positioning's off, right?
Right.
And so they look up and they're like, oh, that kid's offside. But I'm like, no, I got Johnny down here chilling, because their positioning is off.
And the same thing goes to when a ball does or does not fully cross the line into the goal. Are you in the proper position to call that?
Yeah.
We just had a goal called on us over the weekend where the linesman was just on top of the 6 and called it a goal. And we're like, you're not even positioned to call that.
Yeah, agreed.
And it goes along with that offsides rule. Number one, you got to know the rule of what a goal is, of what offsides is, bad throw-ins. But you also got to be in position of what's going on in the game. You got to pay attention to what's going on. Now, I know a lot of kids are easily distracted these days, and it happens, but when you're refereeing a game as a linesman, you've got to be in the right position. It's crucial for that center to know that you're in the right position to, number one, call the offsides, and number two, understanding the rule of the offsides.
Well, and it's so funny, and I love that you bring this up, because this is a point that I meant to bring up earlier that I forgot, and now you brought it up now. The center catches, the most heat, right? Because they're the one that have the whistle, the power of the whistle, right? But the biggest calls in the game are oftentimes made by the AR.
Right? Absolutely.
By the linesman.
That's very true.
Whether it is that run out goal and, they pop the flag up, or, especially when we don't get the VAR advantage, right? And so I think they're on. they say they're off, and then you go back and you watch it, and you're like, oh my gosh, she was on, right? And so you just get, and I've had calls go in my way, I've had calls not go in my way in all of those instances, right? But I think the positioning of the AR, we're not going to have a ton of time to talk about that tonight, but I think the positioning of the AR could be a whole episode on its own, just based on those two things, based on where you are for the offsides call and where you are on the goal line.
Absolutely, Coach. Let's move into our final topic here. What needs to change for the referees? And I think you and I are in the same boat. Educating our young referees is critical. You can't just hand them a cards, get them certified, hand them a whistle, and say, just go do it.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be some observation of them refereeing a game.
Yeah.
There has to be some kind of mentor saying, hey, here's 3 things I need you to work on the next game, and I'll be there to walk you through it.
Yep.
Number 1, blow your whistle when you make the call.
Blow it like you mean it.
Blow it like you mean it. Number 2, be vocal. When you make a call, don't just stand there like everyone understands what's going on. Number 3, you got to know the rules. And I'm going to add the 4th one you put in there, positioning. You've got to be in the right spot. Whether the center or the linesman, positioning is crucial no matter where you are on that field.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the blowing of the whistle. It's one of the critiques that I got a lot of critiques as an official, but I did have a guy who came and watched me every now and then, and one of his observations, one of his critiques of me were the way you blow the whistle is the same way it's not that it wasn't loud enough, but the way I blew my whistle for kickoff, the way I blew my whistle for a foul, the way I blew my whistle for a PK, all of those things, it was the same whistle.
That's interesting.
But he's like, no, if you're calling a PK, it has to be a loud, hard, and long whistle blow. If you're giving a card, it has to be a hard whistle blow. You have to make sure that people understand that what just happened is not okay, and you can do that with how you hit that whistle. And so that was always kind of stuck out to me, right? And so I even watch it on TV now, and like in the NBA or in college basketball, we'll switch sports, but my friends all the time when we're watching games together, I officiated basketball as well for a long time. I hear the whistle and I'm like, that's offensive. And they're like, how do you know that? And I'm like, because and now all of our listeners will now catch on to this. If you hear a double whistle, if you hear a whistle, it's an offensive foul in basketball. Because not only what I'm doing as the official is I'm also signaling to the other officials that I'm going the other way with it, right? I'm calling. So if you hit your whistle once and I hit my whistle twice, we've already communicated to one another that we have different calls. So before one of us makes a big gesture, we may need to come together and talk, right? And so that was always a big thing for me. And one of the things that I took away, like when you start a half and when you're giving a PK, when you're awarding a PK, those whistles have to be different.
That's great information there. And I love that you brought that up here because I never thought about that. I thought referee just blow the whistle. But now that I think back at it, the experienced referees clearly had different ways of blowing the whistle for PKs. Long and hard. They come running in long and hard. And when somebody scores a goal, that whistle is obviously different. Ticky-tacky fouls a little bit. So you bringing that up, I think, is a crucial role. But it's a learned skill
absolutely,
that somebody needs to bring to your attention, which they did, thankfully. And I think that really starts at our younger ages. When somebody gets their license or certification at 13, 14, 15 years old, there should be a big brother, a big sister, a mentor saying, hey, I'm going to watch 5 of your games this season, and I'm going to give you some points that I think is going to help you throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coach, we've had a lot of great points here. There are many more areas we can discuss here on the referee decision. I'm sure every player, coach, or parent has had a referee that they would love to just get rid of. We're on the same boat. But I think
we're both thinking the same name.
But I think the biggest thing is they're human beings. Yeah. They're truly trying to do the best that they can. And we're trying to find ways to take the chances of them changing the games out of their hands and just following the rules here, Coach.
Yeah, before you sign off, I would just say the best advice, I got the whistle advice, I got positioning advice. The best advice I ever received as a referee was at the end of a match, when everybody walks off, you want them to not remember you.
Yes.
Right? You want them to go, wait, who is officiating for us today? You want them to not even realize that you were there because you called the game fairly, you called it accurately, and there was never a moment where you let people and I had games like that where I gave a card or two, right? But you call it as the flow of the game, as the rules are written, and people just don't they get to the end of the game and they're talking to me, hanging out, and I'm like, yeah, I was the center of that game. And they're like, oh, right? So you want to make sure you don't want to be the headline.
We are the Ace Football Academy. This has been the Impact on Referee Decisions. I'm Coach Dunham. That's Coach Hamilton. Go kick some ace.